It's 3 in the morning, house dead silent, and I swear my breath feels louder than the clock. His phone's off. Of course it is. And her door, my sister's, cracked open like bait. My heart tripped hard as I spot the wallet. Not just any, his, with my wedding photo ID tucked inside, shoved under her bed like guilty trash. My chest sank so deep. Then the ring. My ring. Not on him. On her finger all night, spinning it slow, like she owns what was mine. A shaky laugh escaped me. Ha ha ha. The kind that hurts more than it sounds. Think it'd stop at a fair? I'd cry. I'd heal, weeping quietly in some corner of my home. No, this was murder rehearsed. I overheard. Tomorrow, 7 sharp. She's done. 7 sharp? My throat tightened, weeping inside my mind as I realized. That's when my lights dim, my pills go down, my breathing stops. Clockwork. Don't hit like? Someone else likes the next post, your missing person flyer. Ha ha ha, the kind of laugh that breaks. Don't subscribe? Your wife finds your wallet tomorrow in her sister's bed. The cruelty of it. Keep watching. Because at the end there's one question left. My voice trembling, breath unsteady. Are you in the plan too? Thank you for being here with me as I share the most difficult story of my life. My heart feels so heavy even saying that. Your presence means more than you may realize, especially when a moment of truth arrives without warning and changes everything you thought you understood. Before I continue, I would appreciate knowing where you are watching from, because every voice in this community reminds me that no one faces betrayal alone, weeping quietly. Please share your location in the comments, and if you wish to follow more stories about resilience, justice, and recovery, feel free to subscribe. Your support creates a space where honesty finally feels safe. Thank you, truly. Life felt steady in a way that gave me comfort, because routine has a quiet way of convincing you that everything is safe. I used to believe that so deeply. My mornings began with the gentle rhythm of coffee brewing, sunlight slipping through the kitchen blinds, and the familiar sound of my husband moving through the house as if he belonged to every corner of it. His presence filled the rooms with a sense of certainty, a sense that no matter what happened outside our front door, our home would remain untouched by chaos. How naive that sounds now. That belief shaped the foundation of our marriage, and for a long time, I trusted it completely. A small part of me admired the simplicity of our shared habits. He enjoyed quiet breakfasts, early starts, and the subtle satisfaction of knowing exactly what he would accomplish each day. I admired his discipline, his soft laugh in the morning, and the calm confidence that surrounded him. I can still hear that laugh in my mind. In those early years, I allowed myself to believe that these qualities reflected loyalty, devotion, and stability. I thought they represented love in its most dependable form. My relationship with my sister held a different kind of depth, one rooted in childhood memories and countless moments that shaped who we became as adults. She had always been energetic, charming, and endlessly curious about the world. I admired her fearlessness, her willingness to take risks, and her ability to turn any room into a stage. She always loved attention. Our bond felt unshakable because she was not simply my sister. She was my closest friend, the person who knew my secrets and held my trust without question. My heart aches weeping remembering that trust. Trust became the thread that wove my world together. My marriage rested on it. My relationship with my sister relied on it. My sense of self depended on it. I believed I had chosen the right people, the safe people. the ones who would stand with me through moments of joy and moments of uncertainty. I saw no reason to question them, because neither had ever given me a reason to hesitate. Holidays brought our families together, filling rooms with laughter, overlapping stories, and the worn familiarity of people who believed they would always remain connected. Ha ha, the noise, the joy, the closeness. I watched my husband and my sister interact with the natural ease of two individuals who shared a part of my world, but did not belong exclusively to it. Their conversations blended into the background without raising suspicion, because I trusted them both completely. Work occupied a large part of my time, but I carried a sense of peace, knowing that I had a stable marriage waiting for me at home. Each evening felt predictable in a comforting way. We cooked simple dinners, watched television, shared updates about our days, and fell asleep with the quiet reassurance of routine. I miss that illusion. I believed we were building a life slowly, steadily, and intentionally. My sister visited often, her presence bringing a spark of energy into the house. She used to light up every corner without even trying. She teased my husband, borrowed clothes without asking, and made herself comfortable in ways only family can. I felt grateful for their closeness, because I thought it reflected our shared trust and loyalty. I really believe that. I believe that the two people I loved most could never harm one another, much less harm me. The truth remained hidden behind small, everyday moments, concealed within a life that appeared secure from the outside. I had no reason to question anything. I had no reason to fear what waited beneath the surface, weeping softly at the thought. The world I knew felt complete, and the people within it felt irreplaceable. Everything seemed perfectly aligned, perfectly safe. Perfectly mine. None of it was real. My voice cracked at that realization. A small shift in his behavior began the unraveling, although I did not recognize it as a warning at first. His mornings grew quieter, not in a peaceful way, but in a restrained one, as if he held back words that once came naturally. The silence carried weight, but I convinced myself it was simply stress from work, a temporary cloud that would pass. Oh, how hard I tried to believe that. A different unease emerged whenever his phone lit up. He used to place it face up on the table without a second thought, allowing messages to glow openly against the screen. That habit changed subtly when he began placing it face down, tapping the screen quickly whenever a notification appeared, holding it in his hand even during dinner. Ha. A small nervous laugh escaped me, remembering how blind I was. He claimed it was because work had become demanding, and I accepted the explanation without asking for more. A strange tone joined our conversations, one I struggled to define. He listened less, responded slower, and seemed distracted by thoughts he never shared. When I asked if something bothered him, he dismissed the question gently, but firmly, offering half-hearted reassurance that everything was fine. Oh, that hurt even then. The answer felt too quick, too rehearsed, yet I chose to believe it because I wanted to maintain peace. A new cologne arrived without announcement. Its scent unfamiliar and bold. He wore it often, even on evenings when he claimed he would stay late at the office. I told him it smelled nice, but a subtle discomfort settled in my stomach, an instinct I could not explain. He smiled at the compliment but avoided my eyes, and the cologne soon became associated with a tension I refused to acknowledge. Trembling breath, remembering that shift. A growing distance formed between my sister and me, one that appeared gradually through missed plans and vague excuses. She turned down lunches, postponed calls, and drifted away in a manner that felt unnatural. When she replied to my messages, her tone lacked warmth, as if she struggled to maintain the closeness we once treasured. My heart feels heavy thinking about it. Something felt off, but I assumed she was overwhelmed with work or navigating her own private challenges. A friend noticed something before I did. She mentioned that my husband seemed distracted during group gatherings, often stepping outside for calls or checking his phone with an urgency that did not match our social setting. Her observation lingered in my mind, but I brushed it aside, unwilling to dig deeper into a possibility I feared, weeping quietly now realizing she saw it first. A subtle tension grew whenever my husband prepared to leave for the day. He moved quickly, avoided lingering, and offered excuses that sounded increasingly thin. He used the phrase, "working late," with a practiced ease that should have alerted me sooner. The words followed the same pattern every time, delivered with an artificial calm that made my heart tighten without understanding why. A small but telling moment occurred when he returned home one evening, smelling faintly of a perfume that did not belong to me. The scent clung to his shirt in a whispering trace, subtle enough to ignore, but impossible to forget. When I asked about it, he laughed it off and said he had hugged a coworker celebrating a promotion. The explanation settled poorly in my mind, but I silenced my doubts. Ha ha! A hollow laugh escapes me, remembering how hard I tried to accept it. A shadow formed over our marriage without announcing itself directly. It hid in quiet reactions, shifting tones, inconsistencies in stories, and an unfamiliar coldness that did not match the man I believed I knew. I sensed something changing beneath the surface, something I could not name. But I refused to imagine that the truth waiting ahead could break everything I loved. Oh, how wrong I was. Every sign was small on its own, but together they formed a pattern I would soon be forced to confront. Oh, I wish I had noticed sooner. A quiet tension followed me through the house each evening, pressing against my ribs as if something waited just beyond my understanding. My husband's schedule shifted unexpectedly, stretching later into the night with increasing frequency. The phrase "working late" became a routine conclusion to our conversations, delivered with an almost mechanical certainty that made my skin tighten with concern, weeping quietly inside. Each time he used those words, I searched his face for sincerity, yet his eyes drifted away before I could find an answer. A heavier unease settled in when I noticed how carefully he guarded his belongings. His wallet remained tucked deep inside his coat, instead of resting on the entry table like it once did. His keys stayed close to him, clutched in his hand even when he relaxed in the living room. He appeared hyper-aware of his surroundings, glancing around as though something fragile might slip into view at any moment. The behavior confused me, but I convinced myself that he simply felt overwhelmed with work responsibilities. Ha ha, a nervous, helpless laugh at how easily I believed it. A sharp awareness grew whenever he received messages late in the evening. He stepped away from me, sometimes into another room, to respond in quiet tones I could barely hear. When I approached, he ended the conversation abruptly and returned with a faint smile that did not reach his eyes. Ah, that hollow smile still haunts me. The distance between us expanded without confrontation, widening slowly until I felt separated from him, even when he stood only a few feet away. A shift also occurred in my sister's behavior, one that grew more pronounced with time. She became secretive, guarded, and strangely attentive to her appearance in moments that did not call for it. Her laughter felt forced during our rare interactions, as if she needed to maintain a performance that she could no longer sustain. Ha ha, that brittle laughter rings in my ears now. When I suggested meeting for lunch, she declined with quick excuses that appeared crafted rather than genuine. Each canceled plan added to the unsettling feeling that something inside my family bond had begun to crack. A conversation with my best friend deepened my worry. She mentioned seeing my husband's car parked near my sister's neighborhood during an afternoon when he claimed to be at work. The detail struck me with a sharp jolt, but I clung to the possibility of coincidence. Oh, my heart begged for it to be coincidence. Perhaps he had been visiting a client. Perhaps he had stopped nearby for errands. Perhaps anything that allowed me to avoid the truth forming quietly in the back of my mind. A brief but revealing moment occurred during a weekend morning when he left the house earlier than necessary, offering an explanation that felt strangely rushed. His voice trembled ever so slightly when he insisted that he needed to prepare for an unexpected meeting. After he drove away, I realized that his work files remained untouched on the kitchen counter, weeping softly at how obvious it should have been. The oversight suggested he had left with an entirely different purpose, one he did not intend for me to question. A growing collection of inconsistencies gathered inside my thoughts like puzzle pieces from separate boxes. His new cologne, the careful positioning of his phone, my sister's increasing distance, the tension behind his voice, the secretive texts, and the subtle nervous energy that followed him through the house. Ah, it all feels so painfully clear now. Each detail had an explanation on its own, yet together they created an image I refused to acknowledge fully. A deeper ache filled my chest as I reached for my phone with shaking hands. My fingers barely obeyed me. I lifted it slightly, turning on the recording feature without allowing myself to think about what I was doing. The need for evidence overpowered the instinct to scream or collapse, weeping silently in my throat. I held the phone steady, focusing on the muffled voices behind the bathroom door. A soft laugh escaped my sister, followed by her whisper. "We need to be quick. She could come any minute." Her laugh, ha ha ha, it sliced through me in a way I never imagined. A deeper voice responded with calm certainty. "She will not. I told her that I am working late." Hearing it made my stomach drop. A cold wave washed through me as I recognized my husband's voice. With absolute clarity, my breath broke in my chest. The recording captured each word, each syllable, each confirmation of a betrayal I never imagined possible. My breathing slowed to a painful rhythm as I stood motionless, absorbing the final piece of proof that solidified the truth. A quiet step backward helped me retreat from the room without making noise. I closed the door almost silently, feeling the weight of my heartbeat in every part of my body. The apartment air felt too thick to inhale as I moved toward the exit. The pieces of betrayal surrounded me in every direction, from the abandoned ring to the lingering cologne. The smell nearly crushed me. My world had shifted entirely, and nothing familiar remained. A single realization settled with devastating clarity as I stepped back into the hallway. I had crossed a threshold from which there was no return, trembling uncontrollably. A heavy numbness followed me into the quiet hallway outside my sister's apartment, settling into my body with a pressure that made breathing difficult. My hands shook uncontrollably as I reached the bottom of the stairs, because the truth had struck with such force that my mind needed time to understand what my heart already knew, weeping beneath every breath. The scene inside that room replayed behind my eyes like a nightmare on an endless loop. The wallet, the ring, the voices, the familiarity of betrayal unfolding in real time. Each memory pressed against me with crushing weight. A painful silence consumed the drive home, creating a suffocating space where my thoughts moved without direction. Streetlights passed in long, blurred streaks that made the world feel distant and unreal. My chest tightened with every mile, as if my body attempted to contain a grief that refused to remain hidden. Ah, the ache would not stop. Nothing inside me felt steady. Nothing felt recognizable. Everything felt painfully altered. A slow walk through my front door intensified the ache in my chest. The house felt too still, too unchanged, too unaware of the truth that now lived inside my mind. The familiar scent of home wrapped around me gently, but the comfort it once offered dissolved instantly. This space represented a life built on trust, a life built beside a man who had ensured that trust would shatter. Every room felt haunted by the echo of promises that had never been real. Ha ha, a broken laugh slipped out at the irony. A sinking feeling pulled me toward the living room couch. My legs felt weak beneath me as I lowered myself onto the cushions. Unable to hold the weight of my own body any longer, tears threatened the corners of my eyes, but they refused to fall. The shock locked them in place, trapping the emotion inside my chest instead of releasing it. I stared at nothing, unable to process the enormity of what I had discovered. A trembling breath escaped me as confusion spread through my thoughts. Questions appeared, one after another, each one sharper than the last. When had it begun? Why had they allowed it to continue? What had I missed? How had I been so unaware? The questions had no answers, yet they continued to circle inside my mind, demanding solutions that did not exist. The confusion grew heavy, twisting into a form of self-blame I struggled to silence. Oh, my voice cracked just thinking about it. A painful loneliness settled into my bones as the realization deepened. The two people I trusted most had chosen to betray me in the most personal way possible. My husband had stepped outside our marriage with someone I loved, and my sister had stepped outside our bond with someone she knew I depended on. They had shared secrets, plans, and intimacy behind a door that should never have been opened to either of them. The betrayal felt intimate in the cruelest way imaginable. Weeping quietly at the truth. A warm tear finally escaped, sliding down my cheek silently. Ah, I could feel it burning my skin. Its path unlocked more tears, and soon they fell freely, forming a steady stream of emotion that refused to be controlled. My sobs grew louder as the truth settled fully onto my shoulders, weeping helplessly. The emotional collapse felt unavoidable, as if my heart had been held together by fragile threads that could no longer withstand the pressure. A deep ache spread through my chest with every breath. I curled into myself instinctively, drawing my knees close, as though shielding myself from a world that suddenly felt dangerous. Every inhale trembled. Every exhale carried pain. The grief spilled out in raw waves, unfiltered and overwhelming. Ha ha ha. A broken laugh slipped out between sobs. A lingering thought I had tried to avoid finally surfaced. If they could look me in the eye and pretend nothing was wrong, then the foundation of my life had been built on a lie longer than I realized. Ah, that realization struck like a blade. The idea tore through me with startling force, stripping away every remaining sense of security. My heart felt bruised, my mind felt fractured, and my trust felt irreparable. A quiet exhaustion eventually replaced the intensity of my sobs. My eyes burned, my body ached, and my spirit felt hollow. The room around me blurred through swollen tears as I tried to understand how to rebuild myself from the damage they had caused. The collapse had taken everything from me, leaving behind a painful emptiness I did not know how to fill. A long night unfolded in front of me, while I remained curled on the couch, unable to find solace in sleep. My thoughts moved in tight circles, returning again and again to the image of the wallet and the ring. Those images haunted me. Each returning thought deepened the ache inside my chest, but it also awakened something else within me. A slow, steady resolve began to rise, fueled by a need to understand the full scope of what had been hidden from me. A growing curiosity guided me toward the kitchen table where my husband often left his laptop open. The device sat quietly, waiting as if it had become accustomed to being ignored. I hesitated for a moment, aware of the line I was about to cross. However, betrayal had already shattered every boundary that once existed between us. I opened the laptop with careful hands, feeling a tremor of anxiety as the screen brightened, my breath shaking. A search through his recent emails revealed nothing unusual at first glance. Work messages filled most of the inbox, composed in a tone he often used with colleagues. Yet the absence of personal messages felt suspicious. He usually left a trail of small digital habits behind him, reminders, notes, or casual correspondence. The stark emptiness suggested deliberate cleaning, a methodical effort to hide something significant. Ha ha ha! A dry laugh escaped me at how obvious it became. A shift in my approach guided me toward the deleted folder. Here, fragments of conversations appeared that raised immediate concern. Several messages mentioned meetings that did not match the work schedule he had shared with me. Certain messages included vague references to errands, transfers, and late evenings that he had never explained. My heart pounded as I scrolled through dates that aligned with moments he had claimed to be unavailable. Oh, my chest tightened with every line. A quiet determination urged me to explore his financial accounts next. He had once saved all our passwords in a file. Believing transparency strengthened trust between us. The memory of that belief stung as I typed the familiar sequence. His banking dashboard opened with ease, revealing numbers that made my pulse spike. Withdrawals appeared in steady intervals, small enough to avoid suspicion, yet consistent enough to raise alarms. A deeper dive exposed transactions tied to hotels, restaurants, and gift shops. The dates matched evenings when he told me he needed extra time at work. The amounts matched purchases he had never mentioned. My stomach tightened as I examined each entry, realizing the financial betrayal extended far beyond a single lapse in judgment. My hands shook violently. He had used our shared resources to fuel a secret relationship, weaving the lie into every part of our lives. A moment of disbelief washed over me when I reached a list of transfers sent directly to my sister's account. Several entries labeled as help, emergency, or simply loan spanned months of activity. The realization struck with a sharp, cold force. She had accepted not only his attention, but also our money, silently participating in a deception that neither had intended for me to uncover. Weeping at the final blow, a need for clarity led me to his text messages next. Many threads had been deleted, leaving only fragments of conversations that hinted at hidden intentions. Words like later, same place, and do not worry remained visible, echoing the tone of secrecy I had heard behind the bathroom door. My hands trembled as I read each message, trying to assemble the missing pieces. It felt like my world kept breaking. A small folder tucked within his documents caught my attention. My stomach tightened instantly. It carried an innocent name, yet its contents felt anything but innocent. Typed notes described plans for a separate living arrangement, budget estimates, and vague statements about timing. The information implied that he had been preparing for a future without me, long before the betrayal came to light. A shaky breath escaped me. A heavy silence filled the room as I gathered photographs of receipts, screenshots, and digital records. The evidence painted a picture far more elaborate than I imagined, revealing months of coordination between two people who had shared my trust. Weeping quietly at the thought, I saved each piece methodically, building a file of truths that I could no longer ignore. A quiet shift occurred within me as I closed the laptop. The grief remained, but a new strength had surfaced beneath it. The investigation had offered clarity, and clarity brought power. I now understood the scale of their actions, and I knew that this knowledge would shape the next steps I needed to take. Ha ha, a thin, bitter laugh slipped through. A sharp clarity settled over me once I gathered every piece of evidence, creating a shift that felt both painful and empowering. The heartbreak remained lodged in my chest, but it no longer controlled me. The betrayal demanded action, and I understood that emotional collapse would not protect me from the consequences of their decisions. I needed to move with intention, not impulse, because the damage they had caused required a measured response. A quiet morning greeted me as sunlight filtered into the kitchen, illuminating the piles of screenshots and documents scattered across the table. Each photograph and file represented a truth my husband and sister had tried to bury. I studied the evidence again, not to increase my pain, but to ensure that nothing had been overlooked. The weight of it pressed deeper. The scope of their deceit extended into financial fraud, emotional manipulation, and long-term planning. This was no impulsive affair. This was a coordinated betrayal. A firm decision took shape as I realized that legal guidance would be essential. I needed someone who could interpret the financial irregularities, evaluate the fraudulent transfers, and protect the small part of my life that remained untouched by their actions. I reached for my phone with steady hands and searched for a reputable family law attorney. Trembling but determined, the name that appeared most consistently came with strong recommendations and a reputation for uncovering hidden financial wrongdoing. A call to the attorney's office set the wheels in motion. The assistant listened carefully, scheduled an appointment, and assured me that the attorney would review everything thoroughly. Her calm tone offered a small sense of relief, as if someone finally understood the seriousness of what had occurred. I gathered the evidence into separate folders, labeling each category with precision: bank statements, messages, hotel receipts, transfers, planning documents, and photographs. The process felt strangely empowering, and a surprised breath escaped me at how steady I felt. A visit to the attorney's office deepened my resolve. The woman who greeted me appeared confident and composed, with an air of professionalism that made me feel safe for the first time since the betrayal unfolded. She reviewed each document carefully, pausing occasionally to highlight legal terms or ask clarifying questions. As the evidence passed before her eyes, her expression shifted from curiosity to concern, and then to a firm determination. The validation nearly broke me again. A clear explanation followed as she outlined the legal implications of everything I had shown her. Unauthorized withdrawals, hidden transfers, and joint account misuse represented financial misconduct. The secret planning documents suggested intentional deprivation of marital assets. The pattern of deceit carried weight that extended beyond emotional pain. Her initial assessment confirmed that the situation involved more than infidelity. It involved potential fraud. My breath trembled. A strategic plan formed with her guidance. She recommended securing my finances immediately, freezing shared accounts to prevent further withdrawals, and documenting every transaction that raised suspicion. She advised collecting physical copies of all digital evidence and storing them in a safe location. She also explained how to prepare emotionally and legally for the confrontation that would eventually occur, whether voluntarily or through court proceedings. My heart steadied for the first time in days. A small but vital step involved contacting the bank directly. My voice shook as I spoke. I explained the situation to a representative who listened with understanding and initiated protective measures. Joint cards were suspended, new passwords were created, and alerts were set for any future activity. The process felt overwhelming, yet necessary, as each step represented reclaiming control over my life. A trembling breath escaped me. A sense of strength replaced the fear that had once consumed me. The betrayal no longer controlled my decisions. The evidence provided a foundation, and the attorney provided direction. Together, they formed a structure that allowed me to stand upright again, even with the lingering pain. Ha ha! A small, relieved laugh surfaced through the heaviness. A final breath left me with a mixture of sadness and determination. My husband and sister had crafted a plan behind my back, but I now had a plan of my own, one built on truth, justice, and the unwavering commitment to protect what remained of my life. Oh, the resolve felt powerful. A heavy tension filled the courtroom on the morning of our scheduled hearing, creating an atmosphere so dense that every breath felt deliberate. The air carried the weight of truth that had been waiting to surface, truth that neither my husband nor my sister ever intended to face. Rows of polished wooden benches stretched behind me, filled with quiet observers whose eyes followed every subtle movement at the front of the room. My hands rested on a folder containing the evidence I had worked tirelessly to gather, and the certainty of what I knew gave me a strength I had not felt in weeks, weeping softly at the memory. A sharp sound echoed through the courtroom when the judge entered, commanding immediate silence. His presence brought a sense of authority that settled every lingering doubt inside me. He reviewed the documents presented before him, his expression shifting with each page he turned. My attorney stood beside me with unwavering confidence, her posture strong and composed. Across the room, my husband sat with a nervous stiffness, avoiding my gaze as he fidgeted with the cuffs of his shirt. My sister remained farther back, her shoulders slumped and her eyes cast downward, attempting to become invisible. Oh, seeing them like that hit strangely. A rising tension filled the space when the judge invited both legal teams to present their statements. My attorney spoke first, articulating the details of the financial misconduct, the unauthorized transfers, the misuse of joint accounts, and the pattern of deception that intertwined both betrayal and fraud. She presented each photograph, document, and message with precision, allowing the truth to unfold piece by piece. The courtroom absorbed every word, and the weight of evidence built steadily like a rising tide. My heart raced with each revelation. A visible shift occurred when the judge reached the folder labeled Living Arrangement Plans. His eyebrows lifted slightly as he examined the timeline my husband had created. The notes indicated an intention to quietly remove assets, establish a separate residence, and initiate a divorce only after securing financial advantage. The careful planning contradicted every claim of innocence my husband attempted to maintain. Ha ha, a bitter laugh pressed against my throat. A quiet invitation from the judge prompted my husband's attorney to speak. He delivered a strained explanation, suggesting misunderstandings, miscommunications, and emotional distress. His words lacked substance, and each attempt to deflect responsibility fell apart under the weight of the documented facts. The judge asked direct questions, and my husband hesitated with every answer. His voice trembled as he attempted to explain the transfers, insisting they were gestures of kindness toward my sister. Oh, the audacity nearly made my breath stop. The explanation dissolved immediately when the judge compared the dates to the recorded hotel charges. A brief silence lingered after the judge asked my husband why his wedding ring had been found in my sister's bedroom. His face paled as he failed to offer a response. The courtroom observed his struggle with an intensity that made time feel suspended. My heart pounded with a mixture of pain and vindication, aware that this moment represented the collapse of every lie he had built. Weeping inside as justice finally surfaced, a wave of discomfort spread through the room when my sister finally raised her eyes and whispered that she wished to speak. Oh, her voice barely held itself together. The judge allowed her a brief statement, and her voice quivered as she attempted to present her perspective. She described confusion, emotional vulnerability, and regret, yet every sentence revealed a deeper awareness of the choices she had made. Her explanation lacked the substance needed to counter the evidence, and the judge acknowledged that her involvement played a direct role in the harm I had endured, weeping quietly inside as she spoke. A final moment of judgment arrived when the judge delivered his ruling. His voice carried a firmness that cut through the room with precision. He declared that the evidence showed intentional deceit and financial exploitation. He ruled in my favor, awarding me full control of the marital assets, requiring repayment of the unauthorized transfers, and issuing a protective order to prevent further harassment. His words confirmed what I had known for weeks. The truth could no longer be denied. Ha ha ha! A shaky, relieved laugh broke through. A quiet exhale left my body as the gavel struck, signaling the end of the hearing. The sound marked a turning point, releasing a burden I had carried for too long. My husband lowered his gaze toward the floor, defeated and ashamed. My sister remained seated, unable to meet my eyes. I stepped out of the courtroom with a sense of closure I had not expected, carrying the knowledge that justice had been served and the truth had finally taken its rightful place. The relief washed over me. A quiet realization settled over the courtroom aftermath as my husband stepped into the hallway, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. His once confident posture had collapsed into a defeated slump, and his eyes revealed a heavy mixture of fear and regret. The consequences of his actions had stripped away the image he had worked so hard to maintain. His financial stability crumbled under the weight of restitution, legal fees, and the sudden loss of access to accounts he had once controlled freely. The organized structure of his life had dissolved into uncertainty, leaving him without the support system he had always assumed would remain constant. My breath trembled watching him. A different decline followed him into his professional world. Word of the financial misconduct reached his employer, prompting an internal review that revealed discrepancies in his submitted reports. His position, once secure and respected, was terminated without hesitation. The career he had dedicated years to building fractured in a single afternoon. Former co-workers distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with someone now viewed as dishonest and manipulative. The reputation he valued so highly had been replaced by silence and suspicion. The fall from grace was brutal. A separate unraveling occurred in my sister's life, though her collapse carried a different tone. She attempted to resume her daily routine, but the truth had spread quickly through social circles and workplace conversations. Friends who once admired her charisma began withdrawing, uncertain of how to interact with someone who had violated her own family so deeply. Invitations that once filled her calendar disappeared, replaced by strained interactions and uncomfortable glances. Her confident presence dimmed as shame took hold, leaving her isolated in ways she never expected, weeping softly for what she had become. A noticeable tension emerged within our extended family. My parents struggled to reconcile their affection for her with the extent of her betrayal. Their disappointment formed a barrier that she could not overcome, no matter how often she attempted to explain herself. The trust she had once enjoyed eroded completely, replaced by quiet resentment that lingered in every attempt at conversation. she found herself on the outside of a family that had once embraced her without question. Oh, that heartbreak settled heavily. A further consequence appeared in her professional life. Her employer became aware of the financial transfers and the legal case surrounding them. Although she had not committed fraud directly, her involvement in ethical misconduct reflected poorly on the company. After several tense meetings, she received notice that her position had been terminated. The security she relied upon vanished, leaving her with the sudden challenge of rebuilding her income and reputation simultaneously. Trembling at the depth of her losses, a final emotional consequence affected them both. The connection they believed would survive exposure dissolved almost immediately. Without secrecy, the relationship that had drawn them together no longer carried the allure it once held. Arguments replaced intimacy, and blame replaced affection. They discovered that betrayal felt different when the world outside the affair confronted them with consequences. The foundation they built together turned unstable, unable to withstand the pressure of reality. A bitter laugh slipped from me. A quiet transformation settled over my life as I watched their worlds fracture. Their losses did not undo the pain they caused, but the consequences affirmed that their choices carried weight. Justice had taken its course, and the truth had demanded accountability. The closure felt real. A gentle stillness returned to my home once the legal proceedings ended, offering a kind of peace that felt unfamiliar at first. I hardly recognized the quiet. The silence no longer carried the weight of suspicion or fear. Instead, it created a space where my thoughts could rest without constant interruption from pain. I walked through each room slowly, acknowledging the memories held within each space, while also accepting that a new chapter waited to begin. Every corner of the house carried a mixture of old sorrow and new possibility. A trembling breath left me each time I paused. A slow rebuilding process started with simple routines. I began each morning with a quiet cup of coffee, allowing myself time to breathe and settle into the day without the shadow of betrayal following me. That warmth felt healing. The warmth of the mug grounded me, reminding me that small moments could still hold comfort. I returned to hobbies that I had abandoned during my marriage, rediscovering interests that once brought me joy. Painting, reading, and long walks became gentle steps toward healing. Sometimes I even smiled without realizing it. A renewed connection with my friends strengthened my sense of belonging. They arrived with support, encouragement, and genuine concern, refusing to let me isolate myself in grief. Their presence reminded me that trust still existed in the world, even if it had been shattered in the most painful parts of my life. Weeping softly at their kindness, every conversation with them felt like a stitch mending a torn fabric, slowly restoring my sense of stability. A deeper focus on my emotional well-being emerged as I allowed myself to sit with the pain instead of running from it. I learned that healing did not require the absence of sorrow, but rather the courage to face it. Therapy became an invaluable guide during this phase, offering clarity where confusion once lived. Through patient conversations, I understood that the betrayal reflected their choices, not my worth. That realization lifted a burden I had carried far too long. A gentle relief washed through me. A surprising source of strength came from my family. Their support provided reassurance that I was not alone in the aftermath of the betrayal. My parents invited me to dinners, encouraged me to rest, and reminded me of the resilience they had always admired in me. Their unwavering presence eased the loneliness that once threatened to overwhelm me. Weeping quietly in gratitude, a growing sense of self began to take shape as I accepted that my life could move forward without the weight of past wounds. I rearranged furniture, painted walls, and created a home that reflected my identity instead of my memories. Each change represented a reclaiming of space, a declaration that this house belonged to me fully and without compromise. Ha ha ha. I felt proud of myself for the first time in a long while. A moment of reflection arrived one evening as I stood by the window and watched the sky shift from orange to deep blue. The calmness in the air mirrored the calmness inside me. The ache in my chest had softened, replaced by a quiet strength that surprised me. Ah, it felt beautiful. I realized that healing did not mean forgetting what had happened. It meant learning to live without allowing the betrayal to define me. A renewed hope for the future emerged as I recognized my capacity to rebuild. My story had not ended with their choices. It had begun anew with mine. A quiet understanding formed within me as the months passed, revealing lessons I never expected to learn through such painful circumstances. The betrayal had once consumed every corner of my mind, yet time offered clarity that allowed me to see the situation through a wider lens. I realized that the deepest wounds did not destroy me. They reshaped me. They forced me to confront truths I had ignored and strengths I never knew I possessed. The transformation felt profound. A gradual acceptance settled into my heart as I acknowledged that the actions of others would never define my value. I was free pain that flipped me when I realized the truth I had waited years to release. My husband's deceit and my sister's participation reflected their choices, while I carried the responsibility of rebuilding my life with intention. That shift in perspective freed me from the self-blame that once clouded every thought. A trembling sigh escaped me. A renewed sense of identity emerged as I recognized how much of myself I had sacrificed in an effort to maintain relationships that were never built on equal trust. I learned that ignoring my instincts had allowed the betrayal to grow quietly in the background. I promised myself that I would never silence my intuition again. My voice, once overshadowed by loyalty, had gained a strength that I now relied upon proudly. Haha, a soft, relieved laugh slipped out as I realized that growth. A peaceful calm entered my life as I discovered the beauty of standing alone without feeling lonely. Healing taught me to cherish solitude, value resilience, and trust my ability to navigate uncertainty. The scars remained, but they reminded me of my survival, not my suffering. I carried them with dignity. Each scar felt like a silent victory. A final realization anchored itself in my heart. Growth often chooses the most painful moments to reveal itself. I walked through a darkness I never deserved, but I emerged with a clearer understanding of who I am and what I will never tolerate again, weeping softly at the power of that truth. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, especially through moments that tested the limits of my strength. Your presence truly means so much. Your presence offers a reminder that stories of hardship can create unexpected connections among people who may never meet in person. If any part of my experience resonated with you or brought comfort during your own challenges, I hope you will share your thoughts in the comments. I would appreciate knowing where you are watching from and how my story reached you. My voice softens every time I say that. Your support makes it possible to continue telling stories about resilience, truth, and the courage required to rebuild after betrayal. If you wish to hear more experiences that explore the depths of human emotion and the strength that follows, feel free to subscribe. Even saying that makes me smile a little. Thank you again for being here, and I hope you carry a sense of hope with you as your own path continues. May your journey be lighter than mine once was.